Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about big diseases that changed our history. There are 5 major diseases that were very, very scary back in the time. So it was a very long time ago when people didn't know anything about the germs, the bacteria, and viruses. Back then, there were no vaccines and no antibiotics, and there was very, very little medicine. And because of that, some diseases were much more dangerous in the past than they are today. And I think learning about them will help us understand why science and healthcare matter. So let's jump into it. The first disease I have is called the Black Death, bubonic plague. So the Black Death was one of the deadliest diseases in human history. And it happened about 700 years ago in the 1300s. So what we know about it, since it was very, very long time ago, we knew that it was caused by bacteria. And it was spreading from person to person by fleas that lived on rats. Small little bugs that crawl all over rats. They were infected with that bacteria, and that's how people were getting it. People, of course, back then didn't know anything about the germs that were spreading or anything about hand washing, how important it is to wash your hands so you don't get bad guys on you, right? That could make you sick. So many people, because of that, became very sick and very quickly. So symptoms of Black Death included fever, they were very weak, they had swollen lumps on the body. Remember how we talked about our immune system, and one of the protections we have in our body is our lymph nodes. And we have lymph nodes in our neck, in our groins, and in some other spots. But you remember what lymph nodes do? They filter our body from the bad guys. So one of the symptoms of the Black Death disease was swollen lymph nodes, and a lot of people could feel it on their neck. All right, so what do we know today? Today, doctors understand what causes the plague, that Black Death disease. And today, it's actually not deadly because it can be easily treated with antibiotics. So it's no longer something that we would be very scared of. It's no longer a major danger for us, okay? Moving on, next disease on the list is smallpox. Again, smallpox was a very serious disease that affected a lot of people for thousands and thousands of years. And usually when somebody gets smallpox, they would spike a high fever and they would have painful skin boo-boos or sores, right? And the problem with smallpox was that it spread so easily from one person to another. And many people, especially children, died from it. So what happened since then? Well, scientists created a vaccine. Because of vaccination, a smallpox no longer exists anywhere in the world. How cool is that? Smallpox is the only human disease that has been completely erased from our history. So that is a very good thing to know. Remember, scientists, they made a vaccine. It's a special shot that you get so you will not get a smallpox. Next one, we have tuberculosis or TB. That disease affects our lungs. Remember, again, from respiratory system, we learn about lungs that move air in and out from our body. It's very important. It helps us breathe. It helps us to do all the things we like to do. So, tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is a very dangerous disease. And the problem with that is it spreads so easily through the air. So whenever a sick person coughs or sneezes, if somebody is nearby, they're gonna get it. And what does it do? It usually causes that bloody cough, then you feel tired and you have trouble breathing. Of course, you have trouble breathing because it affects your lungs, right? And if there's a bad gas in your lungs, so you're gonna have problems breathing. And a long time ago, of course, tuberculosis was also a deadly disease, very, very scary. So what happens today? Today, tuberculosis can be very easily treated with medicine. There are several medications you have to take, and it takes time, but it's at least you won't die from it, right? That's a good news. Early testing also helps to stop that disease from spreading to other people, which is also a good thing. And most people, when they take that medicine, they recover and everything goes well. Number 4, type 1 diabetes. They call it type 1 diabetes mellitus. There are different names. So mellitus, that originally was given, that name was given a long time ago, and it basically means sweet, right? Because if you know diabetes, that's sugar disease, because we have problems with our sugar. We have a lot of sugar in our blood, and our blood cannot filter that sugar out of the blood. And as a result, the blood thickens because you have mostly sugar, and you cannot transport any oxygen, any nutrients to different parts of your bodies because, the blood is usually liquid. So it's a little bit similar to water, right? How it flows throughout our body, nourishes our body. But if that gets replaced with mostly sugar, and sugar is very thick and sticky, so as a result, you cannot get as many nutrients as you would when you didn't have it. So again, think about it. Type 1 diabetes is a little bit different from diseases above because it's not an infection and it doesn't spread from person to person. It just basically means the body cannot make insulin. And insulin is a specific hormone that takes that sugar out of your blood and puts it inside your cells. And obviously, if you don't have that insulin, then all that sugar stays in your blood. And without insulin, the body cannot use energy properly. Like I said, it cannot deliver all the nutrients to different parts of the body. So what happened in the past when you had diabetes? Well, before insulin was discovered, type 1 diabetes was often deadly. And like I said, there were different names for it. They called it sugar disease mellitus, which means sweet. And then again, how it was diagnosed, usually people who pee, they will have a sweet pee because of that sugar again all over the body. So what happens today? Today, people use insulin every day, so it's been treated with insulin. And children and adults with type 1 diabetes can actually have a good life full of any actions, any activities, and there's no restrictions usually. They can play sports, they can go to school, and they can grow up healthy. So like I said, back then it was deadly disease, but now it's been treated and being managed so people could have the same lives as people who don't have type 1 diabetes. All right, moving next, number 5, we have polio disease. So polio is a disease that mostly affected our children. It spreads usually through germs, and it can cause muscle weakness or paralysis, like when you can't move your leg or arm, it's completely numb. So many children were disabled again because of it, because they couldn't move, and they died in the past. So what happens today? Today, vaccines protect us from polio disease. And again, very similar to smallpox, polio disease is almost completely gone worldwide. And to wrap up, let's think about why these diseases were so dangerous back in the past. Actually, why they were so deadly in the past? Well, simply because people didn't understand germs, how they spread, what causes it. People in the past also didn't know anything about hand hygiene and just regular hygiene. They were lucky enough they could take a shower once a week. And today's world, we take a shower twice a day minimum, right? People didn't have access to clean water back then as well. And nowadays, all our water is filtered, so it's very safe to drink. Again, back then there were no vaccines, no antibiotics, no medicines for people to take, simply even if you have a fever. And hospitals and doctors were less advanced back then because they didn't have too many books, too many studies done to help fight those diseases, right? So what do we know today? How can we wrap up this lesson? Well, thanks to our science, we know how diseases spread, what causes them. We have vaccines and different types of medicine and clean hospitals. And many deadly diseases that were obviously deadly in the past are now preventable and treatable because of all the advances we have now.